Hello, and welcome to the Macon Atlanta Podcast, where we are in conversation with Atlanta innovators and community builders. I'm Brent Macon, your host, and today's guest is Heather Fortner. She's the CEO of SignatureFD. Today's episode is perfect for anyone wanting to think about their emotional relationships and mindsets as it relates to money, especially if you've got aging parents at home, you're taking care of kids, you're feeling stretched, got a lot going on in your career. Heather just has a ton of wisdom and gems for us to think about how we relate to ourselves, to one another, and to the world of finance. So enjoy the episode. Thanks. As we sit, we're recording this in April 2025. There's lots going on in the macro economy right now that would certainly affect how folks might be thinking about their wealth and transferring their wealth. That's against the backdrop of things like the great wealth transfer that we're seeing happening right now. Certainly want to cover AI in this moment and what that means for wealth management. I'm curious, what's your pulse check on where we are right now?
Well, I think taking each one of those individually, I don't think there's an overall pulse check on all of those things combined, because all of those things are very, very large things. But from a pulse check of macroeconomics, how the environment is shifting underneath our feet from a technology, AI, that type of stuff, I tend to hold things external to myself and give myself space to be very, very curious without having to have emotional reactions to things, until I'm able to discern fact from noise. And that's really how I try to approach most things in my life. So facts right now are: people are worried. We don't quite understand. I don't quite understand the strategy at play from a macroeconomic perspective coming out of the White House. But what the markets teach me from history is that it's better to stay invested than it is to try to get in and out and time the markets. And that's just one of those proven things over time. And so holding space for the curiosity around the decisions that are being made, the tariff play, the whatever they might be, the interest rate play, whatever they might be, allows me to be less emotional about needing to feel like I need to do something in the moment. And so I hold those facts while allowing myself to be curious. I'm diligently researching, reading everything I can get my hands on, whether it's coming out of the White House, whether it's coming out of policy, whether it's coming out of economists, whether it's coming out of technologists, from the AI perspective. Just really looking for those fact sets, those things that the really, really smart people in each of those areas can agree to that are factually based, and then forming a decision framework around that.
Yeah. Where did you grow up? You mentioned the Atlanta context in the American South.
I grew up in, I grew up in Charlotte. I was born and raised in Charlotte till I was 15. And then my dad got transferred here. And so I ended up back here.
Got it.
Ended up here in Atlanta.
And you mentioned a few times not fitting the archetype of the wealth manager in training and in persona. When you got the master's in counseling, did you know you wanted to work in finance at that point?
Oh, I was already working in finance. I actually started my career as an intern in the financial services industry with a wealth manager, finished my degree and started full-time with them. I did financial planning, technical financial planning for about 2 years. And then the company that I was working for started a business, a financial trust company, and said, hey, would you like to go help start this business? I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. So I built the operational and technology platform for that business and literally was like, this is the best thing ever. Like building something from ground up. it was a feeling like I'd never had before. So once we got that business up and running, I realized that I am my worst self when I am bored. And so I was going to be my best self by not being bored.
I'm curious, what happened when you noticed I'm bored and I'm being my worst self? And what is it about, like, how did that manifest? And then what is it about not being bored and fully engaged? Like, what do you see switch in the way you experience the world?
So I think there's, I am the type of person that has, you were talking earlier about intellectual needs, right? But also there is a level of energy that has to be expensed at some way, somehow. I would prefer for that energy to be expensed intellectually into building something that is impactful for others rather than destructive for others, in the sense of just partying or, whatever it might be. I have just found that having a purpose and being able to funnel all of that energy and intellectual effort and vision and what if we did this, that curiosity.
And what mistakes or mindsets that you would shift do you see people having about money? And our audience is predominantly the sandwich generation, folks who have kids at home and parents who are still alive and they're making a complex set of decisions. What are some common areas that you all see people maybe not quite thinking about things in an optimal way?
Well, so first of all, I think net worthwhile is unable to be judged because it's individual to every person. So I never like to say that how people are thinking about it is not optimal, simply because they're thinking about it that way for a reason. I just like to get really curious about why.
Can you say more on net worthwhile?
Yeah. So our belief is that there is a place where wealth and the things that you find worthwhile overlap. And that not many people have had the freedom to get to the place to think about that because they've been so caught up in either their money stories, their behaviors, a number, their needs, basic living needs that they had, that they've never actually gotten to be able to dream about what is it at the end of your days that you find most worthwhile. That if you did these things or felt these things or saw these things, you would be so proud and you would rest well. And if you back into that, is your money aligned to that? Because money is a tool. We all have to use it. Every human on the planet has to use it to live. So it's a tool. How many of us have actually aligned our tools to the things that at the end of our life we find most worthwhile? And there are some needs that are immediate, and there are some needs that are middle term, and there are some needs that are longer term. And our job as advisors is meant to be able to kind of create that moat for people so that all of the bombardment of the world and what the world says about money and things doesn't have to get in, and just gives them a safe place to think about those things. And once they can think about those things, we're then able to come alongside with the technical expertise to align the tools appropriately to achieve the outcomes. It's not rocket science. There are so many very, very good wealth managers. What I find is that many of those excellent wealth managers are not necessarily excellent at helping people understand what their hangups might be, right? So rather than saying, how people are thinking about it is not optimal, you could say, well, there's a hang up somewhere. And can we explore that? Like, what is it? I personally, Heather, I have anxiety around not having enough because I grew up in a home that sometimes didn't have enough. And so I'm constantly exploring that anxiety with myself of, is it really a number, Heather? Or are you just scared? And if you're scared, what are you actually scared of? And but I'm skilled in those conversations, and I'm choosing to have those conversations with myself because I've recognized that something's triggering. Market crashes. Trump says tariffs and market freaks out. And everyone is saying, oh my God, do I have enough? Do I have enough? Do I have enough? Do I get out? Right? This tape starts to play in your head. But at the end of the day, I'm having a conversation with myself of, but you're in the plan. You're doing the things that you know are factually right. The number, Heather, is going to be fine because you're following the plan, right? And so there are the tools of being able to understand why I feel that way, have the conversation with myself, go back to the factual things that I know work, and continue on down the path. And not everybody has that. And that for me, it's just one of my goals. And one of our goals here at SignatureFD is, that 10,000 families, we're able to help 10,000 families because we do believe that financially healthy individuals and families are what change community and change the world.
And in your time, do I have the numbers right? Let me make sure that I'm reading this right. Was it 10 million in assets under management to 9 billion over the course of your tenure? Is that correct?
So when I started at the organization, we had about 250 million under management. And we're chasing 10 billion now. When I became CEO, I think we had like 4.5. Okay. And we're 9 now.
Okay. So you've doubled in 5 years since the pandemic and on a path to 10, and I heard the 10,000 goal. And you've mentioned the energy around building. Mm-hmm. What have you all prioritized and what has enabled you to build for scale in the last few years?
At the end of the day, at the core of who we are, the priority is our people and their well-being. That's it. I don't care if we're at 10 billion. I don't care if we're at 25 billion. I don't care. That is all gravy to me.
Our people being employees or the folks whose assets you're managing?
Both.
Both.
So my belief is that healthy advisors serve in a way that helps other families to be financially healthy. And so it's kind of the teach the teacher mentality, which is if I do my job well, which is to serve the families of this organization, to serve these people well, to enable them, to give them the resources, the teams, whatever it is that they need to be their best selves, that they are able to go out and serve the clients with their best selves, which only makes all of the families. And so to me, to us, the conversation has always been the most important thing for us as an organization is to ensure that we always have the choice to serve our team and our clients to the best of our ability versus chase any number. And so when we've thought about growth, when we've thought about the organization, when we've thought about the opportunities to take capital or do M&A or do whatever it is, our goal has always been we never want to be beholden to making decisions in the organization to hit a number where we might have to choose to sacrifice a human. And I know that that seems very unrealistic and very idealistic. But I think holding that line for us, it's been one of the most important things. And I just believe that when you're sitting clearly in your purpose and you're obedient, blessings follow.
How do you think about the AI moment that we're in and what's coming down the pipe? Curious if you all are investing in innovations in that realm. Are you worried about disruptions from agentic AI or otherwise? What can be changed in this game? What can never be changed in this game? Like, how do you see the landscape evolving?
Yeah, I don't worry about things like that because to me, they're all very exciting. It's all innovation, which I find innovation to be very exciting and it's building, right? And so that's, the thing that I love to do and to think about. I don't think, this is going to sound really stupid, but to me, it's like all the time we're building things that make our lives easier. Do you think that when people came out with the calculator or the typewriter, that they were freaked out that they would not have a job? Right? And it's so second nature now. I think the thing that AI will never be able to replace, it can give you optimized outcomes or possibilities based on a set of facts and even probabilities. I'm just not sure that the human emotion side of it will ever truly be able to create that belonging and that connection the way that humans need. I was just reading an article earlier today about the fact that it said more than 50% of people, we are more connected digitally than we've ever been in our entire lives. And yet more than 50% of people say when you ask them that they are lonely. And belonging, per Maslow, is one of the deepest needs, almost as important as food and water. And yet people feel they have more connection at their fingertips, and yet they feel more lonely. The longest running study ever, 75 years they've been doing this study. And the most important thing was connection, relationships, the quality of your relationships for a life well lived. So I think, oh my gosh, if AI can do all of this stuff, this number crunching, this statistical analysis, this analysis of the markets, like, praise Jesus, how awesome is that? And actually provide me potential optimal outcomes that I just couldn't have thought about myself because I just didn't even know that those were options. But then I can layer on my human expertise, my understanding of people, my understanding of my family, my understanding of how stories build, and actually connect with people. What a blessing that would be, because I would love nothing more than to have more time to connect with people and less time having to spend doing notes and calculations and whatever it might be.
Yeah. And in that is not a fear that the core motion of a lot of the job changes or becomes automated.
No, I think it actually, what I do think changes and what I am thinking diligently about is the generations behind us. They interact with technology differently. They think about technology differently. They buy differently. And so I worry. One, I worry about their mental health that's just one of the things that I really, I think a lot about with my daughter. But secondly, I think about how to evolve the business to communicate with people who think about technology differently, use technology differently, use it to make decisions differently, what that means for the business to pivot the business. Where I do worry is that humankind is losing that ability to connect in person. But then I think about, I know it sounds stupid, but it seems like everything kind of cycles anyway. And so I think with more knowledge will come, oh, this is really important. Will come more intention about, no, the human connection is really important. And here are the positive ways to use the technology. Here are the positive ways to use the AI. And really smart people are focused on that. And I take a lot of comfort in that.
That's my hope, that we have a new super tool to help us achieve the right outcome.
Absolutely.
If we can aim at the right outcome.
And if we use it appropriately, which, if I did have a worry, that would be the worry is that I have seen with great innovation, there also comes great depravity. Yeah. And so it's up to us, to hold the line on what we will allow as a society.
Yeah. You want to get your notes done so that you can have more time to connect, which is what you said, not so that you can do 8 other things in the day and have a larger pile up at 4 a.m.
That's correct.
I feel that. Hitting kind of the last topic before lightning round, if we could talk about the great wealth transfer that we are, I guess, in or approaching. How do you see that playing out, and what needs to happen for that to pass well?
What do you mean? How do I see that playing out?
Well, earlier I asked what mistakes are we making? That would be one way that I would think about it. But just what conditions do you see as enabling folks to make decisions on where their wealth goes that are satisfying in their end of life, that stewards that wealth well, especially I'm thinking about businesses, if there's not, a logical succession plan for someone to take over that business, but someone's spent their whole life building something that they're super proud of. Just curious, kind of what are you seeing people either working through, struggling with, considering, and what do you hope happens that makes sure that that transfer lands in a way that honors what's built and sets up future productivity and success? Is that?
Yeah, I think there are 2 things that pop for me in that. One is if you consider that majority of men die first, that leaves a lot of assets transferring to women. And if you completely speak in generalities, right? Historically, in the baby boomer generation, the women have not been the decision makers around money issues. And so you could potentially see a lot of money transferring to women who typically have not been included in the money conversation in the family. And so there's this expectation, I think, in the industry that when the patriarch passes and the matriarch receives the money, that she will immediately fire the original patriarch's advisor if she's not been included in the conversation and go find another advisor that she feels like she can trust. And so I think there's a real opportunity for firms and advisors that potentially can serve women in a different way. So that's one potential outcome. One other outcome that I've heard a lot of commentary around is that my generation, Gen Z, is really kind of that next generation that will be receiving a lot of the wealth transfer, Gen Z, Gen X, receiving, and people aren't really focused on that generation. They're thinking a lot about Gen Y, the digital component and crypto and online robo-advisors and things like that. And they're thinking a lot about the boomers from the transfer. But what about this sandwich generation that really is kind of responsible for caring for both? And so when I think about that, I've seen a lot of families, boomer families specifically, that have ended up with a lot more wealth than they anticipated having. And they've not had quality conversations with the sandwich generation, Gen Z and Gen X. I think I'm X, not Z. I don't know. X. About what their intentions were, what their wishes were, how to handle that kind of money. There are a lot that don't even know what's coming their way. And so I think a lot about, I just recently, 2 years ago, had to move my parents out to Oklahoma, where my younger sister is, to be there. And those were conversations that we had not had, right? And so my sisters flew in, and there's 3 of us, and my parents, and my dad's very hesitant to talk about it all. And my mom has no idea what's going on, and we've got to make decisions. And I'm in the business and, very headstrong. And my 2 sisters have 2 very different styles. And it was like I was 16 again. My dad, it was like, what is happening? I know we're all in this house, but
And if that's happening to you.
Yeah, I'm 50 years old. I'm like 49 years old. And I feel like I'm 16. What is it was just a fascinating weekend of like, what are we doing? Why have we not had these conversations? Like, I understand all of this stuff. And how did we end up here? And it's because it's hard. Yeah. It's really hard to talk about. Yeah,
it's wrapped up in death.
What do you want to happen when you die? Like, that's miserable to talk about. Both of my dad had experienced the death of his mother. That had hit him a wrong way. It was just a whole lot of, oh my Lord, like I'm in this business and we're struggling like this. And I'm a counselor and we're struggling like this. I can only imagine, how this goes for a lot of other families. And so I think that is the thing that I would just say to people is start now. I know it's so hard. I know it is so hard to have these conversations because you can't even fathom losing the people that you love the most. But one of the best ways to honor each other is to be able to have those conversations, to make your wishes known. Clear is kind. And to have those conversations now and to not have to have them later when you have no idea and you can't go get the answers. That for me was just very, very eye-opening of, okay, we need to be better as advisors in helping facilitate those conversations and ensuring that we think about it all day long as a business, the succession plan. Are we helping our families think through their succession planning as well, and how to broach those conversations, how to tell your child, oh my gosh, either we've got a lot of money or we don't, or all of those types of things. Those are very, very important conversations. And the reality is it's not about the money at all. And so that's why I just feel that the expertise in the communication, the art of communication, knowing the tools of how to have those crucial conversations is so important.
That makes a ton of sense. Thank you. What is a resource that you would recommend for anyone listening to this, whether it's about finance or in life or otherwise, maybe a favorite book or podcast or others that you have?
I love anything Brené Brown does. I think it is so spot on and research based, which is what I love. It is simple. It is true to humans, and it is research based. And so I find her thought process and frameworks of how to think about tools of people and communication to be excellent.
What's one place to start with on Brené Brown?
Dare to Lead is a phenomenal book.
And then what's a hope that you would have for future of Atlanta, future of Georgia?
If I could dream, I would dream of an Atlanta where every single child has an excellent education opportunity from early on and is reading fluently by 3rd grade with excellence. That would be because that one factor is the most indicative of future success.
Thank you very much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Really enjoyed it. That is our show for today. Thank you, Heather, for spending time with us. Thank you all, as always, for listening and journeying with Macon Atlanta. Please leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of this episode. If you have any questions or follow-ups, as always, you're doing great out there, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.